How to solve global problems and build paradise. Rational Realism, the core policies. I'm Teacher Wayne Edward Clarke. When I was a young man, I thought to myself, there are a lot of really smart people in the world. There must be someone out there who has a plan to fix all these huge problems we're facing. A real plan. A rational, realistic, practical plan that makes sense to anyone. I searched for people like that, but didn't find any. There were a lot of people trying to improve things on an issue-by-issue basis, but no one with a comprehensive and self-consistent set of solutions. So I started working on it myself, and I've been working on it for 37 years. The result is a system I've called Rational Realism. It's designed to introduce a practical worldview and morality to restore the natural life of the earth, to ensure healthy food and clean water for everyone, to eliminate pollution and garbage, to eliminate harmful unemployment, to redirect harmful systems to beneficial activities, to establish true justice in our legal systems, to dramatically reduce the costs and increase the speed of our legal systems and governments, to eliminate crime, to eliminate government corruption, to eliminate war, to build secure and happy lives for everyone, and to build a strong and prosperous future for humanity for the long term. Will it work? We won't know until we try it, but the logic chains are rock solid. You could say that some of these policies are groundbreaking biosociological design, but it's just as true to say that they're all just good common sense. I am certain that implementing them will produce the best possible lives for everyone and the best possible future for humanity. That's what it's all about, ending needless suffering and death and the destruction of our natural world, and building better and more secure lives for everyone. Life really can be excellent for almost everybody. The good guys really can win, finally and decisively. The complete version of this with all the details will fill a lot of books, but this production, a video, podcast, and blog, is about the shortest and simplest version possible that's still complete and accurate, and it's in plain English. I have not used AI to rewrite any of this in any way because I want you to know exactly what I have to say. After this, I'll be making more in-depth productions about each of the 25 crucial topics I'll be summarizing today. Some of them may seem completely obvious, but each one is too important to leave out, and each one deserves to be stated distinctly. If you think any of these topics are presented here in an overly simplistic way, you'll see in my upcoming and more detailed productions that none of this is simple at all. It's easily understandable, but not simple. The first section explains the worldview and priorities of rational realism. The second section deals with our physical systems and infrastructure. The third section describes innovation in law and government. This is what we need to do to solve global problems and build paradise. Section 1, our worldview and priorities. First, realism. Above all, we need to be realists. We need to have a completely realistic worldview based on the evidence that any of us can experience with our senses. This is consistent with common sense, modern medical practices, technology, science, and legal systems that respect justice. We reject all beliefs that conflict with our knowledge. We know that we won't find any practical solutions to real-world problems in superstition, magic, religion, or wishful thinking. The development of those ways of thinking were unavoidable and natural parts of human social development, but they do not describe reality. Science and technology are realism, and they've brought us everything that's really improved our lives, from medical knowledge to food production to the internet to incredible jet airliners. Only one worldview can be right, whether it's a religion or a political system or any other, since they all contradict each other about crucially important points, and we all live in the same reality. If one of the religions is right, all the rest of them must be wrong. If the Chinese Communist Party is right, all of the rest of them are wrong, including realism. I'll repeat that for emphasis. Only one worldview can be right. The rest of them are wrong. And realism has proved itself to be right, and it continues to prove that it's right with every medical operation that saves someone's life and every airline flight that takes people halfway around the world in less than a day. Once you realize all that, realism starts to look pretty damn good. Second, rationalism. We need to be rational, and we need to make rational decisions that benefit ourselves and others in the long term as well as the short term, based on evidence and well-proven principles, and never make important decisions impulsively or based only on emotions. Third, comprehensive health. We need to have comprehensive health as a primary priority. A system is healthy when all its parts are working well, they're all working well with each other, and it's free from pain and injury. We have to strive to maximize the health of all our systems, primarily the physical health of our bodies and our emotional and mental health, by building healthy relationships, healthy lifestyles, healthy organizations, healthy cultures, healthy societies, and healthy economies in healthy ecological environments in a healthy biosphere. It's easy to argue about right and wrong, but health is a concept we can all agree on. Fourth, morality and being good. We're going to be moral and good because being that way is the smart thing to do if we want to enjoy life. Being nice to others or helping them is good. Hurting or harming others who don't deserve it is evil. In rational realism, these are practical concepts that have nothing to do with religion. While almost everyone has some tendencies to both good and evil in our natures, we can choose our behavior with rational planning and cooperation. Any rational analysis of behavior will reveal that being good is the best practical choice, and that good people are far more likely to be healthy and happy than evil people. While doing evil acts may bring some short-term benefits to the evil individual, there are almost always consequences, and evil people are almost never happy or satisfied with their lives. But we don't need to reform our personalities to try to eliminate every evil feeling and tendency. They're natural parts of us. We just need to choose not to act on them. A rational realist who's mostly evil by nature would still choose to avoid evil acts and evil people because those are the smart things to do if they want to enjoy life. Evil is stupid, and most evil people are parasites on society. Furthermore, the security precautions needed to prevent theft and attack in cultures dominated by evil are expensive, unhealthy, and wasteful. But while we're being good, we need to constantly be on guard against evil acts, whether they're secret or obvious, and never tolerate them, because the more successful we are at eliminating evil, the more vulnerable we are to it. Being good shouldn't lead to being gullible or vulnerable. It's stupid to trust anyone without verification, or to always forgive evil and never punish it. At least some good people need to defend the rest by actively fighting evil also. Some will tell you that the great struggle of our time is of one country against another, or of conservatives versus progressives, or of the religious versus atheists. It's not. Those are smoke screens to hide the truth and manipulate people. The great struggles are still good versus evil, and to a lesser extent, rationality versus irrationality. It's rational for good people to give their loyalty to all other good people rather than to any organization, company, or government. All too often, good people have been convinced, coerced, or forced to commit evil acts against other good people for the benefit of a few leaders or power mongers. All the good people in the world, those who don't harm or hurt others to get what they want, are my people, no matter where they live or where they're from. All the evil people in the world are my adversaries or enemies, depending on the severity of their crimes. Evil done out of loyalty to any organization, company, country, or religion is still evil and must be punished exactly the same as any crime committed by one private citizen against another. Evil is still evil when it's being excused or encouraged by the law or by a religion. Fifth, efficiency. We need to maximize the efficiency of everything we do and strive to never waste any of our time, effort, money, or resources. Checking for more efficient ways of doing things should be part of every plan and every view of our progress. Sixth, truth and transparency. We need to be honest, and we need to be as open and transparent as possible without endangering ourselves or harming our emotional health. No one can make rational decisions without factual information, and if we expect it from others, we'll have to provide it ourselves. Seventh, instinctualism. The most practical paradigm of human behavior is instinctualism. We are animals. Almost everything we do is motivated by instinct, and the rest is conditioning or addictions or being forced by other people and outside factors, or a combination of these motivators. We perceive our instincts as emotions and feelings. When you experience any emotion or any feeling not directly caused by a physical sensation, you are perceiving an active instinct. Instincts can be triggered internally, like when you haven't eaten for a while so you feel hungry, or they can be triggered externally, like when the sight or scent of good food makes you hungry. Some instincts are instinctual needs, and some are instinctual reactions. Like all animals, we have some instincts that are unique to our species, and we have the most complex instinctual profile by far. One example is our instinctual need for understanding. We thrive by making a mental model of reality in space and time. We want to know where everything that's important to us is and what it's doing and what really happened in the past, and both what's possible and what's most likely to happen in the future. We need to know that our model is correct and complete enough to allow us to have good reactions and make good decisions about what we should do, and if we don't, then we feel unpleasant emotions like uncertainty or confusion. Another human instinct is the need for security. We need to be confident that our lives will be okay in the future as well as in the present, and if we're not, then we feel unpleasant emotional insecurity or fear. Having everything you want today won't make you happy if you think you're going to lose it all tomorrow. The security instinct is the one we're following when we follow our heads and not our hearts. In reality, no behaviors are motivated by our intellect. It's just a tool we have to help us fulfill our instincts, like our memory or our sense of time. Simply knowing exactly what we should do intellectually will not motivate us to do it unless the knowledge triggers an emotion, an instinctual motivator, usually the need for security. The three motivators that aren't directly instinctual are conditioning, force, and addiction. Conditioning is habitual behavior we've been trained to do by the rewards and punishments of life, instinctively maximizing pleasure and avoiding pain. We often have no choice but to react to what's happening to us when our choices are forced by other people and events. And addictions function like artificial instinctual needs. Their fulfillment gives us a pleasant sensation that motivates us to repeat the behavior. Their non-fulfillment gives us unpleasant feelings that also motivate us to repeat the behavior. But mostly we follow our natural instinctual needs and reactions, which each have differing strengths from person to person and at differing stages in their lives. Their motivation can be strengthened by reward or weakened by punishment, and they are often in conflict with each other. We do whatever our most powerfully activated instinct at that moment says to do, and if an instinct is in full arousal, then its motivation will be undeniable, unless it's countered by another equally powerful instinctual motivator. If all our instinctual needs are fulfilled at a given moment and we're not experiencing any instinctual reactions to anything, then they're not motivating us at that moment, and that's when we can use our intellects most effectively to decide on what our future actions should be. Eighth, rational sexuality and parenting. The major problems caused by sexuality are 1. Unplanned pregnancy leading to children being born without a stable parental relationship with the intention to have children. 2. The medical dangers of pregnancy and delivery, which affect underage mothers the most. 3. Not knowing for certain who the father of a baby is. 4. Sexual diseases. And 5. Non-consensual sex or rape. Since we had no effective solutions for these problems for most of the existence of humankind, to avoid them we usually developed very strong cultural traditions for monogamous lifelong marriage and equally strong taboos against every other kind of sexual expression. Forcing anyone to have sex is a serious crime and is illegal in every country. Though actually having consensual sex is almost always healthy and harmless, the consequences of it were often so bad that the sex act itself was often demonized as if it was a horrible thing, and everyone was completely forbidden from behaving sexually or talking about sex or even thinking about sex under most circumstances. However, the sexual instincts are the primary species survival instincts and have been for thousands of times longer than humans have even existed, so they are incredibly powerful motivators for both males and females. This has led many people throughout history to break the cultural rules against sexual behavior and to suffer the consequences and punishments for breaking the rules, in addition to suffering the major consequences of having sex that I just mentioned. The total consequences of the rules against sexuality have often been worse than the consequences of sexuality itself. On the other hand, we now have technological solutions for all of the sexual problems. We have several kinds of birth control, so we can prevent all of the problems caused by unplanned pregnancies. Medical systems can prevent almost all of the complications of pregnancy and birth. We have genetic paternity tests that can determine with certainty whether a given man is or isn't the father of any particular baby. And we have tests for all of the sexual diseases, cures for most of them, and treatments for the rest. Therefore, if these solutions were applied correctly and consistently, the existing cultural rules about sexuality and marriage would become obsolete, as the conditions that justified them would no longer exist. Unfortunately, the old cultural taboos are so strong and have so much social momentum that unplanned babies are still being born to unwed mothers because she was afraid to ask her doctor for a prescription for birth control pills because she was afraid her parents would find out she was having sex, and the baby's father was too embarrassed to buy condoms at the drugstore, and they could no longer resist the power of the mating instinct. Then the taboos that were put in place to prevent problems actually become the cause of the problems, and pregnancy often becomes a tragedy for everyone involved. Frustratingly, the global birth rate is dropping faster than it should if we want to avoid consequences from population collapse, though a reduction in population would be a very good thing in most ways. It also seems that most people in the situations they live in today, if they really have the choice, will choose to not have enough children to keep the population stable or even sustainable. So we need to improve the circumstances that prospective parents have to deal with. It seems obvious that we're facing new conditions, so we need new rules concerning sexuality, parenting, and families. This is happening anyway as people make new choices from the possibilities available, both new and traditional. We should consider the possible and probable results of these choices and encourage the decisions that lead to the healthiest lives and the healthiest future. Everyone who wants to have sex without having children should get tested for every kind of sexual disease before they have sex with every new partner, and each partner should provide their own form of birth control. Many of the forms of birth control aren't that reliable by themselves, but if both the man and the woman each provide their own, then two forms of birth control used properly at the same time will be very reliable. And they can then have as much sex as they want with anyone they want, with a clear conscience, and without being dependent on the birth control that their partner provided. Most people who are from 17 to 21 years old aren't considered mature enough to raise children, considering the high standards we expect of parenting today and the difficulty of doing so. Yet those are the ages when we're physically most suited to parenting. Parents at those ages have historically had the healthiest pregnancies and the healthiest babies. At the same time, there are many older adults with no children in their lives whose parenting instincts are starved for fulfillment. One solution is to encourage young people to plan to have 2 or 3 children between the ages of 17 and 27, with the legally committed assistance of time, effort, and money from older adults who will assist with the parenting and share in the joy and fulfillment of doing so. It's often been said that it takes a village to raise a child, and before that it took the cooperation of an entire tribe to do so, and a similar situation is still the best solution today. If this situation is agreed to and planned in advance with the active cooperation of everyone involved, it can be wonderful in every way, and they can avoid conflicts over authority, rights, and responsibilities. 9th, increased personal cooperation. Cooperation is an essential practice that increases our capability, our power, and our efficiency. 2 people working together can do a lot of things that 2 people working separately can't, And 100 people working together can do a lot of things that 50 cooperating pairs can't. 100 people who buy a 100-kilogram sack of rice and then divide it among them will spend a lot less per kilogram than one person who buys a 1-kilogram bag of rice. Companies and governments are common forms of cooperation that increase our capabilities and our power, and will benefit from far greater cooperation in our personal lives as well. Cooperating in groups in our personal lives will allow us to maximize our health and happiness in every way, and to maximize our efficiency in every way. It'll allow us to be self-sufficient in necessities, to maximize our financial well-being and security, to raise and educate our own children, to avoid commuting, to minimize unpleasant work, to maximize our power, and to protect ourselves from external threats and economic downturns. Losing your job because of recessions and other events that are beyond your control is the greatest danger most people face today, and any really major disaster could damage the global economy and lead to global job losses. If you lose your job and can't recover fast enough, you can lose everything. I personally have lost my job 4 times because of things that happened in other countries thousands of kilometers away, and every time it happened, there were thousands of other people who lost their jobs along with me, and all of us suffered consequences from it, and some of them were driven all the way down to homelessness. Few of us were directly affected by the original events, but all of us were indirectly affected, sometimes critically. I could avoid that if I was self-sufficient in necessities while trading globally in everything else. If I was rich enough, I could have a property that could provide me with everything I need to be okay, even if the global economy collapsed so badly that money wasn't even any good anymore. You'd need enough greenhouses for food, solar cells and windmills for electricity, rain collectors and purifiers for water, and other people for emotional health, but you can set it up today with enough money. Those of us who aren't rich can't do this by ourselves, but we can do it if we work together in groups of about 30 to 130. Through group self-sufficiency, we can be safe from the indirect consequences of problems that don't affect us directly, and we'll have a lot more control over the things that do affect us directly. 10th, ending poverty. Cooperation in groups is also a key to ending poverty, not only for the financial advantages, but also for the ability to provide mutual assistance and support and protection from disasters when things go wrong. Another key to ending poverty is life skills retraining. Right now, I'm in the Philippines, where most of the poverty is caused by lack of opportunity, which is gradually being improved by economic development, for now at least. But even if that problem was completely fixed, there would still be the kinds of poverty that exist in developed countries with plentiful opportunities. Sometimes it's just caused by bad luck, but there's also the poverty experienced by people who are so completely starved for almost every kind of fulfillment that they're no longer functional, and by those who've been traumatized by their experiences, those with addictions, and those with health problems, including physical, emotional, and mental health problems. Most of the poor have all of those problems. Many of them are messed up people because their parents were messed up people who raised them and trained them to be messed up people, and never trained them to have a practical set of habitual life skills because the parents didn't have any to teach them. And when it comes to life skills, teaching them is never enough. They must be trained through active example and repetition until the habits are so strong that the person doesn't consider doing otherwise, whether the person learning them is a child or an adult. If you take most developed nation poor people out of their miserable lives and put them in a nice cooperative recovery home with a big group of supportive and helpful people, and have them participate in a well-designed life skills retraining program that's tailored to their personality type, almost all of them would recover completely within a year. Then most of them would have the option of moving to another place of their choice and continuing to have successful, productive, fulfilling lives. A few will never be able to live independently without relapsing, but that's fine. They can continue to have successful, productive, fulfilling lives in a recovery home indefinitely. Furthermore, rich people, even if they're completely greedy and selfish, need to realize that it's in their own best interests to eliminate poverty. Most rich people didn't steal all their money, they got it from their business's customers. What they really need are lots of good paying customers. Poor people aren't good customers. They also commit more crime than other people, which costs everyone money directly, as do the costs of security to prevent crime and insurance to deal with it when it happens anyway. The majority of the taxes that everyone pays go to the costs of poor people who can't afford to pay for their own medical care or their retirements or their daily living expenses. If the wealthy would just bite the bullet and help eliminate poverty, they'll be richer in 15 years than they will if they don't. It's a good investment. Then everyone else will stop hating the rich for being so damn rich while so many others are desperately poor, and the wealth gap or income inequality won't matter. I have no problem with anyone being as rich as they can get as long as they don't hurt anyone else to get it or abuse their power, and if no one's poor. Part 2. Physical Systems and Infrastructure. Policy number 11. Saving nature. We are going to save nature by restoring the environment and maximizing the biosphere. We'll maximize all the natural life forms in Earth's biosphere by maximizing their health, diversity, numbers, and total mass in order to maximize our own health, safety, and resources. Every area of land and every volume of water on Earth will need to be cleaned of pollutants and weed species and will be designated as one of 3 kinds of life zones. 1. Nature preserves, where the natural balance and numbers of all the natural species are maintained as closely as possible and human presence and activity is minimized. 2. Ecocultures, where the natural balance and diversity of all the native species in a natural ecosystem is restored and maintained, while their numbers, density, and productivity are increased above natural levels by every applicable method, including selective watering, fertilizing, and placement, and most of the excess that's produced by our efforts of every species will be harvested for our use, leaving natural amounts of every native species at least. Ecoculture is like farming, except that all the native species in a balanced natural ecosystem will be our crops and our livestock. This will allow us to utilize our lands and waters for billions of tons of bioresources every year while maintaining the natural diversity, balance, density, and health of the Earth's natural life. 3. Eco-developments, or environmentally integrated development. Recognizing that almost all life lives on or near the surface of the Earth, we'll create a much more three-dimensional civilization with most of the surface covered with natural life, and will no longer have to choose between nature and development. We can leave the surface to the natural species while building even more construction than we have so far. Since almost all the roads will be indoors or underground, they'll seem a lot like the corridors of nice indoor shopping malls. These are pictures that ChatGPT made for me as I tried to get it to illustrate what I'm talking about here, and they give you a very rough idea of what it could look like when existing cities are retrofitted to be eco-developments. These pics show plant and animal species that are native to the state of Illinois in the USA. ChatGPT is a wonderful tool, and I couldn't have made these pictures without AI, but it's very difficult to make it understand what I mean, and these don't really look like what I envisioned. These ones show species native to the Philippines. Cooperative homes that are designed as eco-developments right from the outset might look somewhat similar to these. People will live and work in facilities that are surfaced with a diverse and mostly natural ecology that is eco-cultured with mostly native species, but with a greater than natural proportion of native food-producing and product-producing plants and animals, and selected, productive, domesticated species that will be grown organically and whose containment can be assured. The outside surfaces of our eco-development areas and facilities should have abundant recreational parkland, windows, skylights, atriums, greenhouses, vents, solar cells, and windmills, but beyond that, all roofs and exterior walls will be covered with native trees and plants. Native animals will be allowed to roam freely, excepting very dangerous animals which would be excluded from human recreational areas with fencing or relocated from the eco-development areas. All purely decorative outdoor landscaping will need to be done with native species. All roads should be underground, indoors, or completely shaded over by trees to the greatest extent possible, and most outdoor walkways and paths should be made of elevated grading. Policy 12, agriculture. Conventional industrial agriculture and ranching should be reduced and eventually eliminated. Outdoor organic agriculture should be reduced and confined to eco-development areas. Greenhouse agriculture and indoor ranching should be maximized. Policy 13, mining. Mining is necessary, but it requires the enforcement of far more stringent environmental safety rules than the ones that exist in most places today. Also, mining companies have failed to restore the land to its natural state after their mines are exhausted in almost every case. They must be made to deposit enough money to restore the land from whatever state their operations are in at the time. When they've made a small hole, they need to have already deposited enough to restore a small hole to its natural state. When they've created a colossal pit the size of a city, they must already have deposited enough to restore a colossal pit the size of a city. The amounts of the deposits must be decided every 2 weeks at most by independent specialists' estimates of the damage done, with generous estimates of the future costs of restoration. Another independent company or government agency will be responsible for using the deposited money to restore the land as soon as the mine is no longer being actively operated. Policy 14, aquatic environments. Oceans, lakes, and rivers will need to be cleaned of pollutants and weed species and designated as either nature preserves or as ecocultures with eco-developments. Oceanic nature preserves will need to be closely monitored by satellites and patrols. Aquatic ecoculture will involve restoring the natural species as much as possible, then increasing them above natural levels by carefully selected methods, such as stirring up bottom sediments or transporting them from deltas to waters that need the fertilization, mixing the water column, selective oxidization, and emplacing aquatic eco-developments for the people who will practice and protect the ecoculture. Ocean ecoculture can provide a wonderful life for those who choose it, and the best way to prevent abuse of the ocean is to have people living there and protecting it. Conventional exploitational hunters and fishermen that take without giving, that kill life without doing anything to restore the damage, are like farmers who harvest without planting, and those practices must be completely eliminated. There will be many more opportunities for hunting and fishing within ecocultural systems than there ever was in the exploitational systems after we've restored the abundance of the biosphere and produced an obvious excess that needs to be harvested. Policy 15, cooperative homes. Most of us should live in cooperative homes for about 30 to 130 people. Each cooperative home will be designed to provide all of the necessities of life for its occupants, including healthy food, clean water, and energy. It should do so in the most passive or automated ways in order to minimize the amount of work that needs to be done by the occupants to operate, maintain, and clean the facility and its systems. Each cooperative home will also provide facilities to generate income and to enjoy hobbies and activities. Cooperative homes will vary widely, as will their financial arrangements, but each will have an explicit contract written in common language stating the rights and responsibilities of each resident. It's expected that many people will move from one cooperative home to another at various times in their lives for various reasons. Most residents of cooperative homes will take advantage of their group dynamic to co-motivate each other to stay fit, to eat a healthy diet, and to engage in other healthy behaviors that many of us have a hard time motivating ourselves to do as individuals. But some cooperative homes will cater to introverted people who want to enjoy the benefits of cooperating with others while personally interacting with them as little as possible. Some cooperative homes will have no particular focus for the group as a whole, and they will likely have the most stability and the most permanent residents. Other cooperative homes will focus on one or a few particular interests, which might be retraining life skills or raising children, building boats, a certain sport, a certain type of music, etc. As experience proves what works best at producing what we really need, All the cooperative homes will gradually become similar in those ways, and their great variety in every other way will allow everyone to find a cooperative home they feel perfectly comfortable in. Cooperative homes will have modular apartments for families of from 1 to about 7 people containing the rooms that are used daily, including living rooms, bedrooms, bathrooms, and a modest kitchen. Cooperative homes will also have shared rooms for less continuous activities and for group activities, including a large central group activity and meeting room, a commercial laundry, a commercial kitchen, storage, waste management facilities, greenhouses, productive indoor plants in almost every room, energy production and storage equipment, water collection and purification equipment, and a garage. Depending on the priorities of the group, cooperative homes will also include several optional features, possibly including a store or a restaurant, or an audio and video studio, animal facilities, a tennis and badminton and basketball court, a swimming pool, or rooms for computing and office work, or making clothes, or doing mechanics and repairs, or fabricating, or electronics, or industrial production, etc. Garages, manufacturing, and industrial facilities will usually be on the lower levels, along with the garage doors to the road. The rest of the habitat will be protected from any industrial noise or danger by thick walls and floors, along with safety-oriented design, fast and voluminous venting, strict safety regulations, frequent inspections, and generous emergency response capabilities. Until we can eliminate zoning laws that prohibit having residential, retail, commercial, and industrial activities in the same property, we'll have to build cooperative homes in places that aren't affected by such laws. I'd build mine like these, but a lot wider, with sloped sides for a somewhat more natural skyline, a big atrium in the middle with glass walls facing the atrium for the shared activity rooms that surround it, and apartments around the outside. Again, after several iterations of ChatGPT producing pictures of it, this cutaway image is the closest to it that I could come, though not really what I meant. Large language model software is both artificial intelligence and artificial stupidity. When a cooperative home has a significant number of school-aged children, one or more of their parents can be certified full-time teachers, and the rest of the parents can spend at least one work day a week on a rotating basis helping to supervise and teach the children, and be able to be less than 5 minutes away from their children at all times during the rest of their work days. This can avoid most of the drawbacks of large institutional school systems. If several cooperative homes cooperate with each other, they can achieve what one could not. For example, several cooperative homes in a row could have a car factory in their lowest levels for extra income owned by the residents, with each home having one section of the assembly line that leads to the next. And if there's an epidemic, residents of a cooperative home will be able to quarantine and isolate themselves and have everything and everyone they need for health and happiness, physically, socially, and financially, on their property with them. Policy 16, Elimination of Pollution and Waste. We'll have to sort all of our waste, and I've designed an efficient and convenient system for doing so. We'll then reuse or recycle or store 100% of our unwanted products and materials. We need to ban 100% of waste disposal by littering, dumping, landfilling, venting, or burning. We need to ban the intentional release of all poisons, including insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides, and we need to strenuously enforce these bans. Policy 17, Fresh Water Security. We need to ensure that we have healthy water supplies, mainly by 3 methods. We'll collect all the rainwater that falls on our facilities, often after it's watered our plants and filtered down through our soil. We'll reduce, filter, purify, and reuse the water we do use, and we'll collect vast amounts of rainwater at the ocean surface in the rainiest parts of the ocean, most of which are at the equator. It's a lot easier to collect rain before it mixes with the ocean than it is to purify ocean water. Soon most of the great underground aquifers will be depleted, and many arid places that now depend on well water will become almost uninhabitable when their wells run dry. So non-renewable well water needs to be strenuously conserved. Many areas that are distant from the sea will need to depend on rainwater, rivers, and lakes for fresh water, so keeping rivers and lakes free from pollution will become critical, and those inland areas will require even greater efforts to reduce water use and to reuse water than the coastal areas. Policy 18, expansion into space. There are many reasons why we should strive to increase our expansion into space. The Earth is overpopulated. We still have the urge to expand and claim new land that we've had for 100,000 years. Humanity needs an outlet for our energies and a challenge to our abilities in order to avoid stagnation. And the resources available in our solar system are practically infinite. Most importantly, we need to ensure that we can't be made extinct by the destruction of the Earth's biosphere. I believe it's our destiny and our ultimate purpose to spread humanity and the life of Earth throughout the vast lifelessness of our galaxy. The stars are for future generations, but the entire solar system can be ours within a single human lifetime. Part 3. Law and Government. Policy 19. Democracy. Democracy is necessary because it's the only practical method for removing a government that's corrupt or evil or incompetent. Another method to remove a bad government is sustained non-violent criminal disobedience, but that may not work, and it's very costly to everyone involved, and it may lead to harm to bystanders, vandalism, looting, or violent government crackdowns, such as happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989. Another method for removing bad governments is by revolutionary violence and civil war, which must be considered a very last resort and only used when the government is causing more death and hardship than a war would. There will be some bad governments in the future, and they will need to be removed by their people, and removing them by voting them out in a democracy is far better than shutting the country down with protests or starting a war or just accepting the suffering. Policy 20, establishment of justice. Right now, there's very little justice in the world. Most crimes go unpunished, and the so-called justice systems mainly benefit those who work in them, the lawyers and other companies who profit from them, and the politicians who make the unending streams of new laws. It's hideously expensive for everyone else. Those who suffer from crime get very little benefit. We need to establish justice by simplifying, rationalizing, and demonetizing the law, and by replacing imprisonment and arbitrary fines with other options to the greatest extent possible. We'll reduce the emphasis on the letter of the law and increase the emphasis on achieving justice, because when the legal system produces an outcome that's unjust, we'll change the law and correct the injustice. Every human behavior will be classified by the law into one of 4 behavioral legal categories. Legal Category 1, rights. Healthy or harmless behaviors that are always allowed. This is the core of freedom, which is fundamental to a healthy and happy society. If you're not free, you're a slave. Everyone in any country before 300 years ago was the absolute slave of the ruler. They had to do whatever the ruler told them or face being charged with treason and maybe executed. And the ruler could do whatever he wanted to any of them without fear of any consequences unless he offended the populace so much that they rebelled. But today, the same is true of anyone in any unrestricted monarchy like Saudi Arabia or in any modern tyranny. Everyone in North Korea is Kim Jong-un's slave. Everyone in China is Xi Jinping's slave. Everyone in Russia is Vladimir Putin's slave. And because of that, almost everyone there is a lot less healthy and happy than they would be in a just society. Individual rights and freedoms are a top priority and are absolutely necessary for happiness and health. Legal Category 2, responsibilities. Legally enforceable mandatory behaviors such as caring for children, payment of taxes, and fulfillment of contracts. Legal Category 3, crimes. Behaviors that always harm others and so are never allowed. And legal category 4, safety issues. Behaviors that have some value but may or may not harm others depending on their circumstances, that are allowed after a realistic analysis of how dangerous they really are, if steps have been taken to reduce the risk to acceptable levels through education, training, using appropriate safety equipment, and following safety laws. Common examples are food safety laws, traffic laws, aviation laws, etc. It should be noted that the use and sale of most recreational drugs, voluntary prostitution, gambling, and unconventional sexuality are safety issues, not crimes. Everything that anyone could do in their life falls into one of those four behavioral legal categories. Policy 21, understandable laws. Laws must be understandable to almost everyone. You can't get justice from a law that you can't understand, so laws must be simplified to the greatest extent practical. Archaic and obtuse terminology must be minimized or eliminated, and everyone must be educated enough about the simplified laws to understand them. Historic laws that are obsolete, irrelevant, or based solely on technologically obsolete historical moralities must be eliminated. Hiring a lawyer who works for profit should be allowed, but must never be necessary to obtain justice. The legal system should be so user-friendly and reliable that most people would feel that they don't need a lawyer to accuse or sue or defend themselves in court. The decision of a legal case in favor of whoever can pay the most for lawyers, even if they're guilty, is a huge injustice, and so is being shut out of the legal system by poverty. Levying arbitrary fines as punishment for breaking laws punishes the poor far more than the rich, which is unjust. Only restitution payments to directly compensate for damages and fines based on a percentage of the convicted's income and net worth should be permitted as financial punishment. Punishment involves making a person feel worse. Rehabilitation requires making a person feel better. So the two processes cannot be achieved simultaneously, and attempting to do both at the same time is usually a complete waste of time and effort. If punishment is necessary, do it. Then rehabilitate after that. Imprisoning people is extremely expensive and largely ineffective. It also prevents the prisoners from fulfilling their responsibilities to their families, their communities, and those they have offended against. In prisons, the weakest and least violent are punished far more than the strongest and most violent, regardless of the severity of their crimes, since prisoners often cause more hardship to each other than the guards and imprisonment cause, which is unjust. Prisons contribute to greater criminalization and radicalization of prisoners, and contribute to racism from the formation and enhancement of racially segregated gangs. The power of those gangs, both inside the prisons and outside in the rest of society, is far greater because of the prison system. Alternatives include forgiveness, directly appropriate forced labor, for example, those who litter can be sentenced to picking up litter, etc., social relocation, public shaming, physical punishment, and reconditioning. The speed of justice systems must be vastly increased. Their archaic procedures have been mostly unchanged for centuries, and they're easy to manipulate and delay, and they're desperately in need of revision. Policy 22, Elimination of War. All war is crime. Killing or injuring innocent people and destroying their property must never be legally allowed under any circumstances. Every act of war by any government against innocent citizens of their own country or another is a crime, even if it is justified as defending against another country who attacked first. War is initiated and waged by the powerful and for their benefit, often by enslaving those who are less powerful by drafting them, and by exploiting those who are more gullible. Those who are victims of evil when they are attacked by the militaries of their enemies almost always fall into evil themselves as they counterattack, and more so as the war continues and hatreds grow. All the good and neutral people in the world are our people, and all the evil criminals in the world are our adversaries or our enemies, regardless of which country they live in, our own or any other. All countries must agree internationally on basic justice and law, since true justice is the same for everyone. Every country's national government must continue to be responsible for enforcing that law within their own countries, since if we allow a global government, we allow the possibility that there will eventually be a global tyranny that could be almost impossible to get rid of. We can't allow any single country to become powerful enough to take over the world. The largest countries should break up, or the smallest countries should join together, or both. We must ban initiating war as a legal option for governments. But when a national government engages in vast or obvious criminal acts, or fails to prevent vast or obvious criminal acts by others in their jurisdiction, we'll enforce the same criminal law internationally that we do domestically. Criminals who hold the most power must take the most responsibility and face the most severe consequences. All militaries must become part of a single international police force, but remain under the authority of their own national commanders, so no single commander can take control of all of them and corrupt them. Their responsibilities must be to protect the innocent, to enforce justice, and to uphold the law in that order of priority. And when they act, it must be as the protectors of good individuals against evil individuals, and never merely as us against them or as one country against another. Firstly and primarily, they must act against the convicted, responsible leaders of criminal governments whose crimes have been proved by overwhelming evidence in open and public courts of law, even if the presence of the accused cannot be compelled during the trial, and against anyone who directly acts to prevent the arrest or elimination of those criminals, and against no one else. If a country is attacked by a military from another country, the defending country's police and military, in cooperation with the international military police, may counterattack against the attacking military, and against those who ordered the attack, and against no one else in the aggressor country. No one else in the aggressor country may be counterattacked by the defenders. Only the guilty may be counterattacked. These steps would eliminate the need for most of the world's military budgets, freeing a vast portion of humanity's wealth, talent, capability, and resources for constructive and beneficial purposes. With the threat of war eliminated, we could finally eliminate nuclear weapons and their threat of complete global destruction. Policy 23, elimination of government corruption. We should enforce transparency for those holding legal power. Where there is corruption, there is always secrecy, and where there is secrecy, there is corruption, immediately or eventually. Those who hold legal power over others must always have equivalent legal responsibilities towards those they have power over, including transparency, and the greater their power, the greater their required transparency. All governments are watching their citizens to one extent or another. The problems arise when the citizens can't watch their governments. Leaders of municipal and provincial governments will have to stream and record audio and videos of all their activities during their working hours and make it available to their constituents, and never conduct government business during off-duty hours. Becoming a national leader should require absolute transparency. A national leader must record and broadcast live everything they do at all times when they're not in their bedrooms or their bathrooms, including wearing cameras and microphones that record their point of view and hearing, as well as ones that make observations of them, and allow their bedrooms and bathrooms to be inspected for evidence of secret political activity. They must also allow their government business to be viewed and recorded by multiple independent human observers, because video alone can be faked, though the observers may not speak or be distracting in any way, or they will immediately be replaced by other independent observers. If any national leaders will not do these things to prove that they're not corrupt, then we must assume that they are corrupt, and that's all there is to it. No one can be trusted with legally enforceable power over millions of people and billions of dollars based on their word alone. Not me or anyone else. So if I become a national leader, which I'll admit is extremely unlikely, I would gladly allow that sacrifice of almost all of my privacy to continuously prove that I was being trustworthy and honest. Knowing that I would be constantly held to account by those observations would eliminate any temptation I might feel to accept a little corruption here and there. It would also allow me to claim the moral high ground against any secretive and corrupt people I may have to deal with. Policy 24, modernization of government. We'll redesign and streamline government systems to vastly increase the speed of government operations and introduce a stronger element of meritocracy to the leadership of our democracies. Policy 25, redirecting harmful organizations and systems to beneficial activities. No major changes, not even beneficial ones, can be achieved in this world without affecting many people's lives and jobs. All government and private organizations need to try to prevent systemic changes from causing widespread unemployment to people who depend on their jobs. We also need to avoid wasting the millions of person-years of effort that have gone into building some of our biggest companies, so we'll do our best to redirect harmful organizations into healthy activities. For example, we want the petroleum industry to be drastically reduced to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we want the military weapons industry to be drastically reduced. But if most of the oil companies and weapons companies simply go bankrupt, lay off their workforces, and auction off their physical assets at fire sale prices, all the work they've spent to build their teams, organizations, and systems will be lost, along with most of the value of those companies. But since we want to increase our expansion into space, we can redirect weapons companies into making the equipment for that expansion while we reduce their weapons contracts, since the two industries have a great deal in common. Oil industry companies can be redirected into geothermal energy and into ecocultural expansion into the oceans, which will require many similar capabilities, including building offshore facilities, making and operating piping and pumping systems for high-pressure liquids, etc. In conclusion, together these policies are my plan for the best possible future. Anyone who holds a different worldview than mine has the freedom to try to convince everyone else that they're right and that therefore every other worldview must be wrong, as they've been doing for hundreds of years. I'm absolutely certain that rational realism is right about what reality is and about what we should do to maximize health and happiness, eliminate unnecessary suffering and death, prevent disasters, and recover from disasters we can't prevent. Systems that contradict rational realism are wrong. I'm claiming my right to say that putting your dedication into any other worldview or religion is a mistake. There are a lot of people in the world who are rational or realistic or both, but I don't see anyone out there trying to actively and promote and grow anything like rational realism in the same way that people who believe in religions and existing political systems are trying to promote and grow their systems. Someone has to do this, and this is the crucial time. I'm certain that what happens in the next few years will be pivotal in deciding what happens for the next 1,000 years. The pace of change continues to accelerate, and it can't do that forever. The crises of climate change, pollution of every kind, habitat destruction, and mass extinction also continue to accelerate. We are literally killing everything. The total power of humanity continues to grow, and we already have the power to either solve every problem or to destroy absolutely everything. Sooner or later, one way or the other, there will be a new stability. The only way to convince humanity to try a new way of doing things is to build pilot projects, live in them and run them, and prove the new systems work better than any other systems. The only way to change laws is through democracy and participation in the public political systems. Politics may be something that most of us really don't want to do, but it's better than the alternatives. We, humanity, can fix the world, eliminate most suffering, and build paradise. We have the power and we have the ability. We only need to dedicate ourselves to doing it. As I've said, the good guys really can win, once and for all. In a way, I hate to make money from this project, and I wish I could do it for free, so there would be no doubt that I'm not doing this for the money. I have a lot of other projects that I'd much rather make money from than from this. But when I was successful in other projects, I spent most of my time thinking about and working on those projects, and I didn't tend to work very much on this, rational realism. People who are successful and happy in a society don't tend to have very much motivation for creating a new society. These days, I'm back in the struggle, and I'm definitely dissatisfied enough to be motivated to try to change the world. And I know that rational realism is very unlikely to have any real effect or impact on the world if I don't dedicate myself to it completely and work on it full time. So I need to at least earn enough from it to take care of my family and pay the bills. If I achieve financial stability from doing this, I'll be very motivated to keep doing it. Not to mention that it's damn hard to change the world without finances. If you support my efforts, I do accept donations through the various donation links in the description below the video. When I can work on this full time, I'll also start recording and broadcasting documentary videos on what it's like to try to implement a system to change the world. Some of the things you've heard from me today have been said many times before, like the value of honesty, which is as old as humanity. But everything I've said that you've never heard before are my ideas that I came up with independently. And though I can't guarantee that I'm the only one who's thought of every one of them, I'm definitely the first one to put them all together. Rational realism is my system. I say this to prevent other people from trying to take credit for my work if I popularize it. So, I'm sorry this video has ads, and please like and subscribe. I encourage you to leave your opinion or start a debate with me in the comments below. So, keep it real and take care until the next one. By the way, I'll be posting these as videos, podcasts, and blogs on as many different websites on the internet as I can, but I'll only be responding to comments on YouTube and on my Rational Realism Facebook group, which is listed in the comments. Also, until I get a lot faster at doing this, I'll only be posting them every 2 weeks. Later.